What happens when the U.S. Supreme Court hands down a major 6-3 ruling on gun rights, and Congress moves at the same time to change the rules nationwide? That's exactly what's happening right now. A new decision from the Supreme Court of the United States, combined with a push in United States Congress, could dramatically reshape the fight over concealed carry laws across America. The Supreme Court of the United States has issued a major 6-3 decision that significantly impacts the debate over gun rights in America, particularly when it comes to carrying firearms outside the home. In this ruling, the court's conservative majority emphasized that the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution protects more than just the right to own a firearm. It also protects the right of law-abiding citizens to carry a weapon in public for self-defense. The justices in the majority argued that many modern gun restrictions go beyond what the Constitution allows. According to their interpretation, the Second Amendment must be understood through the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. That means, if a modern law restricting guns does not have a strong historical precedent from the early years of the United States, it could be considered unconstitutional. This historical tradition test has become a key standard that lower courts must now use when evaluating gun laws. The 6-3 split also highlights the ideological divide within the court. The majority opinion was supported by the court's conservative justices, who believe the Constitution strongly protects individual gun rights. Meanwhile, the three dissenting justices warned that the decision could make it harder for governments to enact safety measures designed to reduce gun violence. They argued that states should retain broader authority to regulate firearms based on modern public safety concerns. For many states, the ruling could force changes to existing concealed carry permitting systems. Some states have historically required applicants to show a special need or strong justification before receiving permission to carry a concealed firearm. The court's decision suggests that systems which give officials too much discretion or make permits extremely difficult to obtain may violate constitutional protections. As a result, legal experts expect challenges to several state laws in the near future. Overall, the decision strengthens the constitutional argument that carrying firearms in public is a protected right, while still leaving room for certain types of regulation. However, the exact limits of those regulations will likely be decided through future court battles across the country. The legal battle over concealed carry laws did not appear suddenly. It is rooted in earlier Supreme Court rulings that reshaped how courts interpret gun rights in the United States. One of the most important cases driving today's debate is New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen, a landmark decision that changed the way firearm regulations are evaluated under the Constitution. The case centered on a New York law that required individuals to show proper cause before they could obtain a license to carry a concealed handgun in public. In practice, this meant applicants had to prove they faced a special or unique danger beyond the general public in order to receive a permit. Gun rights advocates challenged this rule, arguing that it violated the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, which guarantees the right of Americans to keep and bear arms. When the case reached the Supreme Court of the United States, the justices were asked to decide whether states could require citizens to demonstrate a special need before allowing them to carry firearms outside their homes. In a 6-3 decision, the court struck down New York's proper cause requirement. The majority concluded that the Constitution protects an individual's right to carry a handgun publicly for self-defense. The justices explained that governments cannot impose rules that effectively prevent ordinary law-abiding citizens from exercising that right. Instead, firearm regulations must align with historical traditions of gun regulation from the early years of the United States. This ruling had immediate consequences beyond New York. Several other states had similar permitting systems that required applicants to justify why they needed to carry a gun. After the decision, many of those laws faced legal challenges or had to be revised. The case also created a new legal framework for evaluating gun restrictions, meaning courts across the country must now consider whether modern gun laws have clear historical parallels. As a result, the Bruen decision continues to influence lawsuits, legislation, and political debates surrounding concealed carry and firearm regulation nationwide. While the courts are shaping the constitutional boundaries of gun rights, lawmakers are also trying to influence the future of concealed carry through federal legislation. Members of the United States Congress have renewed discussions around a proposal known as the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act. which could significantly change how concealed carry permits work across the country. The idea behind the bill is similar to how driver's licenses function in the United States. If a person is legally allowed to carry a concealed firearm in their home state, other states would be required to recognize that permit when the person travels there. Supporters of the proposal argue that Americans should not lose their constitutional rights simply by crossing a state line. They say that the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees the right to bear arms, and that this right should be respected nationwide. Many gun rights organizations also claim that national reciprocity would create consistency because the current system forces gun owners to navigate a complex patchwork of different state laws regarding permits, background checks, and restrictions on where firearms can be carried. However, the proposal has sparked strong opposition from gun control advocates and some state governments. Critics argue that each state should have the authority to set its own firearm regulations based on local safety concerns and public opinion. They warn that a nationwide reciprocity rule could allow individuals from states with looser permitting requirements to legally carry concealed weapons in states that have stricter standards. The debate also raises broader constitutional questions about the balance of power between federal authority and state rights. Some lawmakers believe Congress has the power to enforce constitutional protections nationwide, while others argue that gun regulations should remain largely under state control. As discussions continue in Congress, the outcome of this legislation could play a major role in determining how concealed carry laws operate across the United States in the future, potentially affecting millions of gun owners and travelers. The growing debate over concealed carry laws has also sparked a deeper conflict about who should ultimately control firearm regulations in the United States, the federal government or individual states. For decades, gun laws have varied widely depending on where someone lives. States such as California, New York, and New Jersey have traditionally adopted stricter rules governing concealed carry permits, background checks, and limits on where firearms can be carried. Lawmakers in these states argue that dense populations and higher risks of urban violence require stronger safety measures and tighter oversight. On the other hand, states like Texas, and Florida have moved in the opposite direction by expanding gun rights and making it easier for residents to carry firearms in public. Some of these states have even adopted permitless carry laws, allowing qualified individuals to carry concealed weapons without applying for a special license. Supporters believe these policies strengthen personal freedom and allow citizens to defend themselves without unnecessary government barriers. The involvement of the Supreme Court of the United States has intensified this debate because its rulings can limit how strict state regulations can be. When the court determines that certain gun restrictions violate the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, states may be required to change or repeal those laws. As a result, states that historically enforced tighter gun control measures may now face legal pressure to loosen their rules in order to comply with constitutional interpretations. At the same time, proposals being discussed in the United States Congress could further shift the balance of power. If federal legislation establishes nationwide standards for concealed carry permits, it could reduce the ability of individual states to maintain unique policies. This ongoing clash between federal authority and state independence has become one of the central issues in the modern gun debate. The outcome could determine whether gun regulations remain largely local decisions or move toward a more unified national system. The Supreme Court's recent ruling has triggered strong reactions from organizations, lawmakers, and legal experts across the United States, highlighting how deeply divided the country remains on gun policy. Supporters of expanded gun rights quickly welcomed the decision, arguing that it reinforces constitutional protections guaranteed by the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. Groups such as the National Rifle Association say the ruling confirms that law-abiding citizens have a fundamental right not only to own firearms, but also to carry them for personal protection in public. According to these advocates, strict permitting systems in some states have historically limited that right by placing excessive restrictions on ordinary people seeking to legally carry a weapon. At the same time, gun control organizations strongly criticized the decision. Groups like the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence argue that the ruling could make it more difficult for state and local governments to implement policies designed to reduce firearm-related violence. They warn that limiting the ability of states to enforce strict permitting requirements could lead to more weapons being carried in crowded public spaces, potentially increasing safety risks. Critics also believe that local officials should have the flexibility to design laws that respond to the specific safety challenges in their communities. Legal experts predict that the ruling from the Supreme Court of the United States will likely spark a wave of new legal battles. Across the country, courts may soon see challenges targeting a wide range of firearm regulations, including limits on sensitive locations where guns are prohibited, background check requirements, and permit procedures. Because the court introduced a stronger emphasis on historical tradition when evaluating gun laws, judges must now determine whether modern restrictions align with firearm regulations that existed in early American history. This new legal standard could reshape how courts analyze gun laws for years to come. As lawsuits move through lower courts, judges will continue interpreting the boundaries of the Second Amendment, meaning the legal and political fight over gun regulations is likely far from settled. Following the recent ruling by the Supreme Court of the United States, the debate over concealed carry laws is expected to continue evolving through several important developments. One of the most immediate outcomes will likely be a surge in legal challenges across the country. Gun rights groups and civil liberties organizations are already preparing lawsuits aimed at testing whether existing firearm regulations meet the constitutional standards outlined by the court. Because the ruling reinforced protections connected to the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, lower courts will now need to review many state and local laws under this new interpretation. Regulations involving permit requirements, restrictions in public locations, and licensing procedures could all become targets for future litigation. At the same time, lawmakers in the United States Congress may play a major role in shaping what happens next. Federal legislators are continuing to debate proposals that could affect concealed carry rules nationwide. One proposal, drawing particular attention, is the Maui Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, which would require states to recognize concealed carry permits issued by other states. If such legislation were passed, it could create a more unified system for gun owners traveling across state lines. However, the proposal remains controversial, with supporters arguing it protects constitutional rights while opponents warn it could weaken stricter state safety regulations. Another important possibility is that additional firearm-related cases could eventually return to the Supreme Court. As lower courts apply the new legal framework established in recent rulings, disagreements between different federal courts could arise. When that happens, the Supreme Court often steps in to clarify the law. Future cases could address unresolved questions, such as where firearms can legally be carried, how states can structure their licensing systems, and what types of restrictions are considered historically consistent with constitutional protections. Because of these ongoing legal, political, and legislative battles, experts believe the national conversation around gun rights and public safety is far from over. Decisions made in courts, state legislatures, and Congress will continue shaping how Americans interpret and exercise their constitutional rights in the years ahead. So here's the big picture. A 6-3 Supreme Court decision, combined with action in Congress, is reshaping one of the most heated constitutional debates in America, the right to carry firearms in public. Whether this leads to broader gun rights nationwide or a new wave of legal battles, one thing is clear: the concealed carry fight is far from over. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more legal explainers, and stay informed as this story develops.